deal that we're not interested in. At least we thought we weren't when we showed up.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I guess on
Exactly.
that note, and building off of what you've already discussed about the media not sharing with us what people are actually thinking and doing, and what's really going on out in the streets, and what I want to, and some of talking about Bernie or Bust, and just about what people are doing as far as working on the ground, getting together, networking, and making things happen. I wanted to highlight something from the Progressive Report, or the Progressives Report, with David Barnes, who is a local delegate who's at the end of this clip. You'll see him there. But it's some of the delegates that spoke at the Washington State Congressional District Caucus this last weekend, where we chose who we were sending to the national convention. So you'll see some of Bernie's national delegates that are coming out of Washington. There's also some other delegates that didn't quite make it. We only had 5 slots for Bernie's side, 3 women and 2 men. So some of these folks that you're going to see didn't make it, but they were all amazing participants, and the entire process was great. And so you can find the Progressive Report on Facebook if you want to see the full video. Otherwise, I'm just going to go ahead and get us set up here momentarily, and here we go.
Part in our political system for one good reason: there's never been anybody worthy of our vote as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. Bernie Sanders has woken up within me a fire that has taken someone who has never voted before to someone who went and opened up a volunteer campaign office in our little town of Yelm, who was a caucus site leader, a deputy field organizer, precinct and legislative district delegate. And he inspired me to go march on Washington, sit down on our Capitol's steps and get arrested with 1,400 other those who want to stand up and get money out of politics, because corporations are not people and money is not speech. So please send me, because I will be your warrior on the floor to fight for our champion, Bernie Sanders. Number 21,
I have spent my younger years in Lebanon. I have seen U.S. manufactured planes fly overhead and drop bombs over the hill, right next to where the hospital was where my father worked. So I will not be scared into forgetting that 90% of drone strike casualties are civilians. Also in Lebanon, I have gotten 2 undergraduate degrees for the combined cost of less than what I pay in rent for 1 month right now. So I will not be scared into selling my children into indentured servitude of student debt. Last week in Nevada convention, delegates like you and me got a little loud protesting the injustices pushed on us by the Democratic Party and the establishment of the media flipped out. Well, let them tremble, because we're only going to get louder.
This is my dad. He served Korea. He served Vietnam. He died from Agent Orange. I watched him die. I took care of him the last 4 months of his life. He was raised during the Depression. He introduced me to Bernie Sanders. We flew, when I was a child, all over the country protesting the Vietnam War, because when he got back, the VA refused to treat him. This is my son. He was blown up in Afghanistan. He's 100% disabled. This is one of the reasons I won't vote for Hillary for anything. He was EOT. He served as Secret Service for her when she went overseas as Secretary of State. And excuse my language, but because he stepped in front of her while a camera was on her, she literally told him to get the fuck out of her face. I will not vote for her. This is my husband. He's also a 100% disabled veteran, and I take care of him every day. He suffered from a traumatic brain injury and has PTSD. Try living with somebody that doesn't understand their mental health illness because their brain is so damaged. my daughter, who also served in the OD Tech, and also served as a Secret Service guard for Hillary Clinton, who was mistreated by her. I will never, ever vote for Hillary Clinton. The wars have to stop.
The reason that I'm here and why I think you should go is because, first let me say, thank you, Barbara, and thank you to your family. A lot of people don't know, but Barbara has done so much work in Pierce County, amongst the whole group. All of us have been led a lot by Barbara. I'd like to thank Megan, I'd like to thank Austin Environment, and I'd also like to thank Richard Green and Ryan Bowman. We've been working together and creating a coalition. This is a lot more than just us. There's a lot of personalities here and a lot of great people. Whoever moves on, network with the people around you. Create a coalition. Whether Bernie Sanders wins or not, we need to keep going on, keep this energy together. And so what I'm committing to you guys to do, I've got this show, it's called The Progressives Report. You can find it on Facebook, right? I'm going to record this process. I'm going to show as much of it as I can. I want to hear from you, and I want to be able to send that back to the politicians. We want to change the opinions of the politicians. We don't want the politicians to change the opinions of us. Now, this road for me started because I lost my job back in 2008. Right when I was getting a raise, right when my life was going somewhere, my company said to me, hey, dude, you're doing a great job here, but we just lost a third of our workforce. And so the reason that I'm here fighting is because we need to go to the DNC and fight the 1%. We need to remember who our enemy is. We need to remember why we lost our retirements, why we lost our jobs, why we lost our stuff. And that's what it's about. So let's network together. Let's work together and move forward. Okay, I'm David Barnes from Delegates.
And so there you can see just a small little selection. Those are just some, and there were other very great ones in there. Of some of the delegates, two of the ones that are going to be going to our national convention are the first person you saw there, Tambourine, and the next person that you saw there, the young lady from Lebanon, who went into detail. I'm also going to describe this a little bit for Dave because I know he might not have been able to catch all of it, and so some of the woman from Lebanon described how she grew up seeing U.S. manufactured planes flying overhead, dropping bombs within eyesight near a hospital where her father worked, and that she's not going to be intimidated by the you better vote for Hillary or else, into forgetting that she saw that so many people have been harmed by those types of policies, and as she mentioned, that 90%, there's a study where during 5 months period of drone bombings where 90% of the people killed by the drone bombings were innocent civilians. 90%. 1 out of 10 of the people that they were killing were the person that they were aiming at. I can't imagine where else we would accept those types of things, and we're always told that the reason why we're using drones is because there's so much less collateral damage than just dropping carpet bombing and the like. And when you find out that if you take a look at what's actually happening, that while the overall numbers may be lower, the ratio of bystanders and civilians to those that we're targeting don't seem to get much better. And so when people, and this is how I figured this play or build is a part of Burning or Bust, is when those people that I heard speak there and many other people that I heard spoke, they weren't Bernie or Bust because they're some young kid who doesn't get politics and just, wants free stuff, and that's why, Bernie had all the promises, so, yeah, I'm a whatever. It's not, just Reddit kids or, all of the types of narratives that are out there about why people are Bernie or Bust. The reasons why people are Bernie or Bust that I've experienced, that I've talked to personally, are reasons like that, where they can point to some places in their life where they've realized that either Hillary Clinton directly or the neoliberal agenda or just the Democratic establishment that's left them behind has directly negatively impacted their life. And it's not just that it's happened, it's how that the party and those groups are characterizing their history. So when Hillary Clinton says that she's always been an advocate for, or been a strong advocate for, gay rights and all those types of things, for some gay rights, she might be able to make that case. But in other situations, we found that the reality is that, for instance, when she mentioned the Nancy Reagan thing, where it was another instance of her misspeaking, that if she was really an advocate for gay rights throughout the history and at that time, then, or even just recently, that type of slip up with Nancy Reagan, I think, would be highly unlikely, especially at the prolonged rate that she went at it. And so, for those of you who just joined us this hour, this is Project Sanity, and we're just getting ready. Benjamin is going to not be able to be in tonight, but we are going to have a great roundtable with the Progressive Army, so stay tuned for that. I am just looking in to see. Okay, good. I heard somebody drop from the Hangout. I wasn't sure if I still have my co-host here or not, so I'm pulling it up now.
I'm here. Hanging on. Listening to you talk about Bernie or bust.
Yeah, were you able to catch any of the speeches? I know the video was short.
I did. I was able to put my headphones on and was able to catch it while I was monitoring on the other channel. Yeah, I mean, those are some passionate people, I got to say, and they have deep resentment and anger towards the policies, these neoliberal policies, like you say, that happened basically in 1992 when Bill Clinton came into office. So we have, and part of the problem, I think, is that what's adding, everything, just all of these things keep piling on top the Bernie or bust people and just adding to their quiver, if you will. The fact that she's talking about putting Bill in a position to help with the economy. There's a lot of people that feel that he basically took Reagan's plan and made it happen, and we lost millions of jobs. So that doesn't
she didn't mention
well.
that she was going to put Clinton or Bill in charge of the economy when she was in the Midwest. She waited until she got past that part before she went ahead and, oh yeah, Bill's going to be in charge. I'm pretty sure Michigan's gap would have been a bit larger. Ohio might not have turned out the way it did, and several other things might have changed had they realized that when she says, she's going to do something different on trade, what she means is have her husband be in charge of resparking the economy with great trade deals like he negotiated with NAFTA. And so
that's right. And all you got to do is just look at the recent poll numbers of the Rust Belt they just did with Hillary versus Trump, where Trump is doing pretty well in the Rust Belt, talking about those issues. Now, I'm not saying, he's obviously a marketing genius and he knows what to talk about. This is what he does. So, but he is, those numbers are being affected in there because of that direct thing. So there's a long and distinguished list of reasons not to vote for Hillary Clinton if it's between her and Donald Trump. And, I know there's a lot of fear mongering about Donald Trump and what's going to happen if he becomes president. And the wall is on his first 100 days. He's going to design the wall. Well, fine. He can design the wall all he wants. Nobody's going to build an 80-foot, 100-foot wall with a golden gate in it. It's not going to happen. You think any Congress is going to put the kind of money out to do that? And Mexico, please. And you want to talk about wall building? You know who's been building a wall? Obama. The border fence has been expanding the fastest under the Obama administration than anywhere before. So just add that to the drones, which is basically this, they used to call this, I forget the exact name for it, but, back in the 80s when we were in, with the Contras and Nicaragua and Panama, it was all this low grade warfare. It was secret. Nobody knew what was going on. It was real quiet. We paid other people to do it. And that's basically what the drone war has turned into. The drone war is this really quiet way that we can bomb the shit out of everybody and get, 9 out of 10. It's like, oh yeah, we don't know who 9 out of the 10 people are that we killed. We know we got this guy, but the other 9, we're not so sure who they were. They could have been insurgents or they could have been family members. We're not quite sure.
And so I was just going to say, it's a lot harder to get, the special forces to go in and continuously go on raids where there may be one person that they're after, but they're ending up killing 9 more people that they're not after, who are just happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. And you can only get them to do that so much. But one of the things that is a byproduct of the drone program is it dehumanizes the warfare. It turns it more into a video game. It turns it into something that you're much more disconnected from. And so with the general electronic weapons, the C-130s also have this situation where if you get sometimes the radio audio of people when they're firing some of the weapons, it's when you see they're firing on a child who may or may not be an insurgent, and just the type of the language that they use. I think partially how we build our military has something to do with that, the psychological breaking down and building up of people that are capable of killing other people on a regular basis. That leads to some parts of that, but then also just when you're sitting behind a joystick with no real sensation of being in mortal danger, that it takes away some of the parts of war that makes you remember that you're shooting at another human being, that that person, even if you disagree with them, even if you're at war with them, that those are lives that you're taking, and especially when they're not people that you're actually in conflict with. And so that's part of what prevents war, is that eventually enough warriors get filled with the psychological damage that causes, that no matter how much the leaders want to keep fighting, they can't find anybody to take those people's places to fight a fight that doesn't seem to have a righteous cause.
Well, you just look at the PTSD statistics and what these cats are going through coming back. And yeah, there's actually an excellent documentary, I believe it's called Drones, that deals with some of these pilots, talks to some of these pilots that are involved, and they no longer do it because of that reason. It's a very, I mean, they knew about this in World War I. It was called trigger pull. There was a problem with trigger pull, and men wouldn't do it. They wouldn't kill another human being. So they learned very quickly that you had to dehumanize your enemy in order to get people to actually pull the trigger and kill other people for no good reason. And the drone war just has taken that to another level. We've basically taken this generation of kids who are joystick generation and have turned them into, distant killers. When they go, and then they go home, they get done with their 8-hour shift after killing a bunch of people, and then they go home and hug their wife and kids. It's pretty terrible. And unfortunately, maybe Bernie will come to a change of heart on this. But I know at this point he supports the program. Maybe once he knows more about it and how it's being used, once he gets more into those briefings, that will change. But I know he considers it a tool. And that's one of a few issues, that I still, Bernie's not perfect. I don't worship the man, but I do find him to be on 99% of the right side of things. There's a handful of things that I question about and would like to ask him about, quite personally, frankly. But I think that if we're going to look at a lot of what those folks were talking about with regards to the war, and if we really want a future that's going to have the best chance for non-intervention and for useless wars of just whim, Bernie Sanders is our best chance. So that's one of the reasons I support him. So that's great. Those delegates, awesome. It's great to see them. I hear you missed it by that much.
Yeah, just a little bit. And I think I'm going to be able to get some more great clips from that I'm going to be able to run next week, and maybe I'll be able to get some of what I said. Or, it was only just a minute. I guess I could give you guys just a breakdown of basically what it was. Essentially what I said was that what we need to make sure that we do in that room is to make sure that we send delegates to the National Convention who are ready to speak truth to power. Because in my view, both parties, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, are both addicted. And they're addicted to money and power. And as long as we keep enabling them by electing them, as long as we keep doing that, they're never going to quit. And just with the parallels addiction in so many ways, and as an addict or anybody that's dealt with addiction will tell you, is that people will do anything to feed their addiction. People will do things that makes it often hard to live with themselves afterwards when they become clean. It makes it hard for them to understand just how horrible what they did while they were feeding their addiction was, and how they can continue to exist after that. They destroy relationships with family members, with friends, with businesses, with their workplace, with anywhere and everywhere, whatever it takes to feed that addiction. And so whatever we do, whoever we send to the national delegation, and in what I speak now, I say what we need to make sure we raise voices is people that are willing to say that we're not going to enable you anymore. And so by the coalescing around Clinton in order to prevent Trump, to me, is enabling that addiction. And,
I agree.
and we'd like to think, just like any, or many mothers or parents of people that have dealt with addiction, or other family members, it's hard not to want to enable them, because you're worried about what will happen if you don't. Will they go out and will they get shot while trying to rob somebody? Will they, what will they do in order to feed that addiction if you don't enable it? What will they hijack our democracy? Will they put military in the streets to ensure the outcome of an election that people disagree with? We can't let our fear of that stop us from doing what's right. We have to stand up and we have to speak that truth to power. We have to stop that addiction, because otherwise they'll destroy themselves and they'll destroy us along with them. And so that's basically what I said. I didn't get it out as well because somebody else said what I was going to say right before that.
Don't you hate that?
I had to come up with that on the fly. That was the version that I said, like you do, as you tend to do after you say something. You're like, oh, what I should have said was. But that was what I was trying to get out. And so,
no, I think you're right on the money. And the Bernie or bust. I got 500 votes, whatever. But here's the thing about that. That narrative was there. You caused Gore to lose. No, Gore caused Gore to lose. Gore didn't win his home state. He only sued in 4 counties, and then he quit because he didn't want problems. So this is part of the enabling of the addicted. They're addicted. They don't want to upset the apple cart too much. They knew that he's basically going to toe the same line, because we basically it's the same parties swinging, corporate parties swinging back and forth. And I know I'm going to get hassled because I'm saying the two parties are the same, but they are. The two parties are the same. They're completely ruled by corporations. And if I think Mike Yard on the nightly show said that Bernie supporters don't care. We don't care. We're not part of most of us aren't part of the Democratic Party. The reason we're in the Democratic Party is to vote for Bernie. That's the only reason we're here. And that's, 42% of the population are independents. And some of them are going over to vote for Trump, and some of them are going to vote for Bernie. And so it's not like this unification of the Democratic Party. We're not part of the Democratic Party. We're here to vote for Bernie Sanders and his agenda. Now, I proposed a question on my Twitter earlier today, which is an interesting theory that I'd like to talk to some folks about, and maybe we can talk on a later, get in depth with that, has Bernie Sanders basically used the Democratic Party to have an independent campaign for president? Because essentially that's what he's doing by becoming a Democrat and running in the party system. And now it looks like he may or may not continue. He says he's going to support Clinton, but let's see what happens with the DNC.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting idea of whether, there are some logistic issues about getting on the ballot, but I haven't seen anybody absolutely refute a map to 270 based off of precedent that he would not be able to get on the ballot if he petitioned or, really tried.
Well, the Greens are on every ballot.
Yeah.
In all 50 states.
Or at least planned on. I know they were still, I don't know if they had finished getting on all of them. I know they were well on their way, though. And
So that's an option. I know the mainstream media is itching for the Republicans to hijack the Libertarian convention, which I think might be today or tomorrow, and use that as the third party platform because they're already polling so well. But I don't know if Johnson's going to be so happy about that, considering he's getting 12 or 15% sometimes.
The poll.
Right, exactly. They're on the ballot. To run strictly as an independent, that's kind of why I have that theory, is because he knows he's not going to be able to run as an independent outside because it's so hard to get ballot access and debate access and all of it. For Jill Stein, she complains about that constantly. She can't get in on the debate. She can't get, they get on the ballots because they're a large enough party. But you're basically shut out as a third party or as an independent. So to jump on the Democratic bandwagon and sort of just do an end run around that system basically running as an independent slash Democrat, it sets him up for at least having this incredible base that he would never have before if he had run strictly as an independent.
Yeah.
Now, does he really want to burn down the DNC like they're speculating? You know, does he really? Is he going to go for broke? Is he Bernie or bust? Is he part of our conversation that's forget it? These people are never going to be able to change. We need to burn down the system.
It's an interesting question and an interesting angle. And Patrick from chat mentioned that the Greens, he doesn't think that they're on a bunch of states. And last I heard,
oh, okay,
they had made it to in the 30s, I believe, but they have a plan to get to all 50.
Okay, so they're not. That's their plan to get there. I see. 21 states, according to BS opinion. 21 states, Green Party, Libertarian, 33. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So. You know, so they've got challenges. All the independents have challenges. It's set up that way. So,
yeah. And so I think it's interesting to find out whether, like you said, is Bernie. Where does Bernie stand on this? How does he see the future of the Democratic Party if he just endorses Clinton? And it's hard for me to even imagine him campaigning for her, other than just against Trump. Like. That's the most I could see him actually verbalizing. But
there's my wife's like, I swear to God, if he starts doing that, and Elizabeth gets on board, I'm never voting in the Democratic Party ever again. So he's going to turn off a lot of people, depending on how he handles it. How he handles it on June 8th or June 15th or July or whatever. I mean, he's going to the convention, obviously, but how does he handle these committee appointments? You know, how does that go? You know, how much of a stickler is Cornel West going to be for this platform? Is he going to fight it tooth and nail like the Tea Partiers did on the right? So we'll see. But I think it's intriguing that he did decide to run as a Democrat, even though he's an independent. He's always caucused with the Democrats, of course. That's known historically. He's always pretty much voted with them. So. Just an interesting thought, a way to get his nose inside the tent, as it were, and then basically change the entire party. He has effectively, if you look at the chat was talking about Debbie Wasserman Schultz being sacrificial lamb. He's basically is he burning down the Democratic Party? Is that what he's been doing?
Yeah, and how far can he get? And how far is he willing to go? Those are interesting questions. To be determined. Yeah, and I don't know how it's going to pan out. I think I know that the delegates that we're sending and the general feeling in the room, and despite the primary results, that the general feeling of Washington is that Hillary is not going to. She's not going to win. I don't know whether it's going to be Trump getting a majority, or whether it's going to be Gary Johnson being unusually popular in Washington. He does fit into our political sphere a bit more so than he might in other places, as far as where a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters are regarding some issues, because nobody really knows why not to support Gary Johnson. People know that he wants to decriminalize marijuana, that he's anti-interventionist, that he's generally a libertarian. So there's not a whole lot of information out there as why one wouldn't want to support Gary Johnson, and it's not likely that that's going to get widely disseminated.
Yeah.
So he's going to be able to basically paint his own picture, especially in states like Washington, and let his supporters that have been here for years be able to create an image of who he represents. So I personally think that it's actually possible that Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump doesn't win Washington State, even if Bernie doesn't get in, and it's just Gary Johnson and those other two. And so if this is, in my vision, this is still worst case scenario. It's we'll have Washington will make a statement saying that we are done with those parties and what they represent, and we'll pick just about anyone over. If an old boot was on the ballot, that might win. And so that we're done with that here. And
so why do you think in these the difference between the caucus and the primaries, this last primary that Washington just did, is why was the turnout I mean, obviously caucuses are a pain in the ass, but so do you really think that, you know, he crushed in the caucus, but then now Hillary Clinton is won by about what, 6 points in the primary? So what is your opinion on that system in Washington, and why, you know, why is it the caucus that makes the decision as opposed to the primary?
Well, it's kind of a long, convoluted process, and just on the actual numbers, I haven't looked recently, but I know that they gave a reporting number at the end of the day, but Washington's all mail-in, and so anybody that voted that day, either dropped it in a ballot or mailed it in, that those would not have been counted at that point. So if it's still that number that totaled up to about 650,000 votes, if it's still that number, then nobody who voted on the day has been counted. I again haven't double checked that yet. So that's part of it. Another part of it, like you mentioned, caucuses are a bit more of a process, though people in places like New Hampshire or Arizona, voting for a primary took longer for them in many places than it did to caucus in Washington, even as long of a process as it is.
Right.
Another part, the congressional district level caucus was the previous weekend, and so a lot of Bernie supporters were very focused on being prepared for those, making sure that delegates were going to show up, making sure that individual delegates were prepared to make their cases to be on national, making sure that all of that was being orchestrated. And so the beauty contest primary wasn't really on the priority list as much as everything else. I knew as soon as Bernie won the caucus, I knew that they were going to use the primary in order to create a narrative. I knew it. And so I always encourage people vote in the primary because they're going to do that.
Right.
And so
right.
now not everybody was as adamant about that, and so that definitely played a role. One of the other things is Hillary didn't have to do anything to convince her supporters within Washington State that the primary had merit or some reason to vote. It was like, for Hillary supporters, many of them, in the demographics that they are, just assumed our voter education is so poor in our state, in my view, that many of them just assumed that the primary counted. That's how they never even heard about the caucus, and they just got a ballot in the mail and said, okay, those are the presidential candidates. I like that one, marked it, sent it back. That's as far as they know. That's their civil engagement when it comes to voting, and that's the beginning and end of it. And so for those folks, that definitely heavily favors Hillary, and so that also boosted her numbers as well.
Right.
And then obviously, yeah, just the mail-in making it just generally easy to participate. I know several people had issues with if they voted on local ballots that were up a couple weeks before the primary, that their signatures were rejected by the vote verifier counter folks at the state, and so that they were needed to require or submit new signatures to verify that the signature that was on that ballot was the one that belongs to that voter. And so I don't know how widespread that was, but there have been reports of that. And so then also if you never sent in that piece of paper, then your vote wouldn't count for this primary either. So
Right.
all of those issues, I think, compiled together help contribute to what we're seeing in Washington. And I'll have to double check just to see if the last day voting has been counted yet. And I'll just let you talk for a moment while I do that.
Well, I mean, it's. I know we're getting plenty of voter disinformation here in California. I'm starting to watch another an independent media person here. Our vlog escapes me for a second. I'll get it. But anyways, she's talking about it, how the DMV is giving wrong information. People calling up, they're telling them, oh no, if you are a no party preference, you have to put in a provisional ballot. And this was the information people were getting. Wrong printed information on their ballots and their sample ballots. Dates wrong. There's a lawsuit pending here in California. I know that Sanders was talking about possibly trying to extend voter registration in California. So it's, they don't make it easy, especially you think the Democratic Party would make it a lot more easier to register to vote, to be a part of the process. Now, California, we do have motor voter now. It's starting in June, not in time for the primary, but in time for the general election. You will automatically be registered, similar to Oregon in California, but it would probably be the same thing where you are no party preference, and you'd have to decide on which party you wanted to become a part of in order to vote, especially in the closed or semi-closed primaries, which we have here in California. But who knows if those rules are all going to change? If Bernie gets anything to do with it, we'll see. Maybe things will change. Maybe the primary system will change. But I think it is so ingrained in so many states, and it's determined on state levels. And if you just look at that, what went on in Nevada, the level of corruption that just was blatant. I mean, just blatant changing the rules. And someone made an interesting comment about Nevada. You put people in a room, thousands of people in a room for 15 hours, and you put 4 bars outside the door, and see what happens. So yeah, people got a little hot under the collar, but there was no.
You got to make sure that you make sure to tell everyone to talk about politics. Everybody's
right,
here to talk about
talk about politics. Right. And here, have a drink, have a shot. Let's go get another shot.
Yeah,
I can't stand this. I'm gonna go get another shot. Oh yeah, I'm sure that added to it. No other caucuses have that. Only in Vegas.
Yeah, and I mean that Vegas is a particular set, but I know at my convention where we decided on our county platform that it got a little contentious, and that there's again going back to voter education and how poor it is. I know just in my state, but I know around the country is that most Democratic events, whether you're at a union or whether you're at one of these a Democrat Party convention or just a meeting of some sort, that often they'll operate under Robert's rules. Now, right. I know myself personally in my public education, I don't remember ever hearing anything about Robert's rules except for when I did win a position at my local community college as a representative of the students, and that we did it, but it was just us at the meeting and nobody else was watching us, so we only followed them as closely as we were encouraged to by the staff person that was there overseeing, making sure that we follow the procedures, because technically those procedures were legally binding for the school, right, and for the funding that was going to by the students. And so if you're in community college or college at all, you might want to show up to those budget meetings and those student council meetings. You'd be surprised at what you can learn or find out or interrupt or start or change just by being there. Because, point of order.
Yeah, point of order.
Yes, exactly. And so
power of point of order.
So
yeah, that was exactly my experience with Robert's Rules of Order. Was in college during the theater guild that I was president of. We tried to use those, but yeah, it was it's and then nobody knows what's going on, and all of a sudden things starts changing and gavels start getting pounded, and it's really to see your democracy trashed is disconcerting.
Yeah,
so
people have a sense of feeling about when something just is askew, and
yeah.
I think that's what people got at the Nevada thing, and I think that there were at least, I know there's reports of at least one Hillary supporter, but I believe he was the father of a Sanders delegate, so maybe, who knows if that was a protest for his daughter, excuse me, I should put myself on screen, that it was a protest for his daughter or what, but that I know at my convention personally that votes weren't being split precisely upon whether people supported Bernie or Hillary, that people, at least at the very local levels, were voting for what they thought was right. And that was usually heavily influenced by the candidate that they supported, but it wasn't universal. There were several times where there was just as many Bernie supporters voting for something as there were Hillary supporters, and vice versa. Well, Hillary supporters there weren't as many of, but percentage-wise. And
yeah, so, well, there were Hillary supporters there that weren't happy either. I mean, there were people that walked out just in disgust on both sides. So, it's, but we'll see. It's June 7th now. It's the big, that's the big one. And it's the Bernie or bust movement is not going anywhere, folks. I mean, and it's just going to get more intense. The more, this was a huge mistake. The debate thing was a huge mistake. The email situation that's continuing to escalate. There's so many things that just keep adding on the pile of Bernie or bust. I have yet to hear a real legitimate argument. I mean, we can't have Donald Trump as president of the United States. Imagine what he'll do. George W. Bush was president of the United States. It was pretty unimaginable what he did. I suppose another unwarranted war, or it's the mushroom cloud again. Are we getting the mushroom cloud again over Donald Trump possibly being elected? Oh my God, it's going to end in a mushroom cloud. Is that the level of fear they're trying to put upon us?